Isn't that fun? Got a lot to keep track of. Yeah? Oh, nice. Kids these days, you know, they're born and raised with that stuff. Internet didn't even come out until I was going into college. No worries, no worries. Yeah, it's pretty fun. But yeah, I guess the question I have for you is how much of like an introduction do you want me to give about the company? You know, I can give examples. I can like, you tell me. I don't want to like take up all the streaming time, but. Oh, fantastic. Okay. Gotcha. Not like, stop talking. You're talking too much. Got it. No worries. Perfect. This is your. Oh, go ahead and start. Gotcha. Are you thinking like specifically around leadership or around the business? Okay. Cool. That is no problem. I do, and just so you know, I am at a standing desk, so I do sometimes move around a lot. I hope that's not too distracting. Perfect. Yeah, because I'm gonna say the books behind you look a little low, so you must be a fellow desk standing person. Gotcha. Yep. I love standing desks. I have one here, obviously at home, and one in the office. Just okay. That's why you sound so good. Got one of those fancy mics. No kidding. That is so true. That makes sense. That makes total sense. Get out of town. Okay. That I mean, it makes sense. I never was up, but I'm not a Apple guy other than my phone. You know, I'm still a PC computer kind of guy. So. That's the one thing that's kind of kept me away from Apple. Is like once you go to Apple, it's like you have to convert your entire ecosystem to Apple, And it's like, I'm not ready to do that. But, the phone was the first switch. I was an Android guy. And so now I'm an Apple guy on the phone. But computer, I'm still holding out. Still holding out. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Cool. This is fun. This is exciting.
And now I say, good morning, Joe. How are you doing today?
Good, Jim. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I want to say welcome to JimTalk Moments in Leadership. This is a place where we are 8:30 in the morning Pacific time, 11:30 on Eastern, and we interview leaders such as yourself so we can gain insight into what's going on in the leadership world today. Tell us about yourself a little.
Sure, Jim. My name is Joe Stecher. I am co-founder and CEO of a company called Tackle AI. And Tackle AI is an innovative software company that has developed a next generation artificial intelligence platform that can find, analyze, and organize dynamically unstructured data found within any type of document a business may have. So what that essentially means is we completely automate those boring, mundane, repetitive tasks that are often error prone, and we can do that in mere seconds. So a workflow that used to take hours or days or weeks, we can literally complete in seconds. I mean, it's rather remarkable to kind of see. And if you want, I can give you kind of a real live example or two or whatever you want, but you let me know.
I thought it was very interesting. I told you a little earlier that we watched your little video. And I thought it was really interesting when it said, yes, we do this in seconds. Oh, by the way, that's not one document. That's 10,000 documents. And everybody's dancing in the background.
Yeah, we're pretty proud of that video. It's as I mentioned before, it's what we do is not very sexy, right? We're not the AI that's shooting rocket ships off to Mars or landing back on itself and then exploding, or self-driving cars. We're not that kind of sexy AI. We're kind of been referred to, and it's funny to say, but it's true. We're more like the plumbing of the AI industry. Right? We're actually the ones that are down in the dirty side of things, actually doing things that most companies, actually all companies, could really benefit from. So it's fun. So yeah, the video is like, how do you make people excited about a very boring thing? We're talking about extracting data. Like that's not fun. That's not sexy.
Yeah, but connecting it to leadership. Leadership is often about the data and making it knowledge so that we can make real decisions about the world that's going on around us. In fact, I think I mentioned to you a little earlier, I'm reviewing a book that I give to many clients, Climbing the Ladder of Business Intelligence, and it talks about sort of what you're talking about. How do you take facts and make it into real data and make it into knowledge so that we can make real decisions? This is the foundation of why people need your product.
Absolutely. And what's kind of wild is as we become more and more digital as a society, all that information is going to be somewhere. How do you get insights into that information, right? And this is something that I hate to say it, unfortunately, like Facebook does really well. And it's kind of interesting, but there's something to be said about it. Like the more data you have, the more information you can get out of it, the more insights your company can glean, which means you have more information to make decisions for your company, even more information on how to handle, your employees or your team members. It's really remarkable to see how much data gets collected and really how much information is trapped within those documents. There's 80% of the world's information, and it's growing, is in unstructured formats, and that's really hard to get information out of that. It's usually like a manual human taking information off of digital documents and putting it into a computer, and then you run your analytics. But if you can't get all that information into your analytics platform, you're only getting half of the analytics you could actually get. So you're making decisions based upon less than half of the information available, and that's not very productive. it may help you, but if you can get 80, 90, 100% of the information in there and run analytics against it, you're going to get a much more rich data set to pull information from.
That's really interesting. So when we talk about leaders in this, tell us about your leadership in building this company, or prior to that, prior to COVID-19, before this giant work from home, everyone, COVID-19 world. What was it like for you?
Yeah, I'm kind of a unique situation because my last startup was actually also a startup. That's kind of funny to say. My last company was also a startup, I should say. And so I'm used to the whole, work from home kind of environment. And the same thing was with Tackle AI, same kind of thing is we started out working from home. We actually sort of bucked the trend. So we're a little bit opposite of what's normal for COVID-19 era, but we actually got an office and started working from an office during COVID-19 instead of working from home. The team just kind of grew to a size where collaboration, that instant collaboration, this is the one thing that is kind of missing in the world, I think now, is that water cooler talk, and I think we'll talk more about that later. But the leadership style is much different nowadays. You can't have that personal interaction, right? You can't just go up to somebody and say, hey, we need to go ahead and knock this thing out right now. Nowadays, it's, I need to Slack you a message, I need to text you something or shoot you an email, and then I just wait, sit back and I wait for an answer. And meanwhile, it's not like you're twiddling your thumbs, because then you get onto something else, but now you're on this path, and then someone pings you and you're like, oh, let me get back to that. Now you got to switch back and go on this path, and it's a little time consuming, a little cumbersome. I don't think it's as productive, even though people work from home, the studies have shown people are more productive. And I'm not 100% sure if that's really, they're more productive, or if they're just working longer and getting more done because they're working longer.
Yeah, so now you opened up to like 5 different questions that I want to ask you. Let's start with the water cooler talk a little bit. When I stopped going in the office, the water cooler talk and not having a whiteboard were the 2 biggest things that I missed right away. Just as you said, 5 minutes at the water cooler, we met at the kitchen and made our coffee. And I was surprised when it went away how many decisions and how many actions came out of that. And now I replace it with about 6 different 30-minute Zoom meetings. Instead of just me and somebody else who made a decision, you have 6 people in the room, and it just blows up into a big thing.
Oh yeah. It's Zoom obviously was or any of the other ones, WebEx or GoToMeeting, whatever. But anyways, it was necessary, right? Because one of the bad things with COVID-19 is most humans need that human interaction, right? They need that physical piece, and that kind of went out the door. Zoom does a decent job of still connecting. Like, I can see you, I can hear you, but it still doesn't replace that personal interaction. So how do you lead your team? How do you still kind of get everything that everyone really needs, including that personal aspect of it? Because as a leader, I think part of my job is to make sure that my team members are getting what they need to perform their job. And that includes both the work kind of aspect, but also the mental aspect. Right, you got to make sure they're in a good space in their head, working for the company, because they represent your company. A lot of times they're your first line of defense, if you will, for your company. So you want to make sure that they are good to go. And so I, like you, I've got just chock full of Zoom meetings all day, every day, and it gets a bit cumbersome. But I do spend, with each person or each team or each group session, I do spend a little time kind of try to recreating that water cooler talk. So it's not always 100% business 100% of the time.
Yep.
I try to bring in that personal aspect and have a little fun, but still also get majority of the work done.
Right. I've seen a lot of leaders and executives where they used to have open office hours and make appointments and talk to people one-on-one. Instead of doing that, they have a open Zoom, and anybody from their team or teams can come in, and it becomes sort of like what it was when we sat down in the cafeteria and we chatted, right? So it kind of replaced that, and it's amazing how much I want that as a human, that
Yeah.
interaction.
Yeah. I like that idea. I mean, I've always, I would say I have like open door policy.
Right.
And back at the office, my door is always wide open unless I'm on a meeting, right? Then I shut the door because otherwise it's too loud and it's annoying to other people because sometimes I talk too loud. But I don't know, like get excited about this stuff.
Well, other people
Yeah.
think it's boring, but it's great for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. So recreating that, I like that, an open door Zoom. Usually it's, Slack me, email me, call me, text, I don't care. But I will say one of the things I have noticed more recently, Jim, is Zoom fatigue.
Mm,
Now since we're in COVID-19 and Zoom everywhere, Zoom this, Zoom that, it's kind of tough always to be on Zoom. When you're at work, you don't always have to be ready to go on camera or always ready to sort of chit chat. So there's some folks who, even on my team, that just don't want to be on camera. They have no problem talking, but they're just
right.
sick and tired of having to turn on the camera and
Yep.
sit properly and look like they're ready to go. So yeah, you just kind of learn your team members, and that's probably go back to the water cooler talk, is find out what they need and kind of what how you can help them. And one of the things that some of our folks, they just don't want to turn their camera on, which is fine by me. There's other folks who are like, you don't have your camera on, I'm not going to talk to you. But at the same time, I know my team. Some folks don't want to turn on the camera, and that's fine. We'll still chit chat. It's just like a phone call, except it's just through Zoom with
Right.
no face. And that's fine by me because I'm typically a pacing kind of person or walking. I like to walk when I talk. So not having a camera on allows me to do that. Something like this, I
Yep.
cannot.
Yep. That's an interesting point. Many people have brought that up with me in conversations. And yeah, we got used to having these cell phones that are untethered, and we have an earpiece in and we can walk around, and Zoom kind of puts that leash back in, right?
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed.
The other thing you talked about was productivity. I hear from a lot of places say, yes, productivity is up, but creativity is down. Do you see that?
Yes. It kind of goes back to that collaboration thing. When you can just immediately, you're in this mindset, immediately bounce an idea off of your coworker who's, in the next cube or next office over, right? There's something to be said about that interaction, and it just kind of breeds that creativity. When you're at home all day, every day, looking at the same things and you can't even say the same, well, maybe the same people too, depending on where your home is and how many folks you have in your home. But yeah, I think it's more about just, let me check in, let me get my work done, and I'll just do the same thing, rinse and repeat over and over again, right?
Right.
With being in the office, it's I don't know, it's just a different dynamic. Just having that interaction, being able to reach out for immediate questions and getting that immediate response. So again, we talked earlier about, let me switch over here while I wait for a response. Oh, the response came in. Let me switch back over here. You don't have that interruption, I should say. And yeah, it's just something to be said about that. So does Zoom work? Yes. So I agree 100%. More productivity, but the creativity is meh.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. As I said, I missed the whiteboard, getting around the whiteboard, putting stickies on the wall and moving it around, or whatever you use for brainstorming. That interaction where we bounce ideas off of each other is a creative methodology that gets the juices going that we just don't have right now. And yes, there's tools out there that help that, but I don't find it myself the same, right?
Agreed. In our office, we actually have whiteboards everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not a room that you can go into that doesn't really have a whiteboard. We even have one of the movable whiteboards.
Right.
So in case we need more space next to one of the whiteboards that we've filled up, you've got like extra real estate to keep going. And yeah, it's that Yeah, and yes, you're right. There's tools out there. Even I think Zoom sometimes has like a whiteboard effect
Yep.
they try to recreate. But again, it does a good job. It does the job, but it's just not the same.
It's not the same. I remember sitting in the rooms doing this, and someone says something, and all of a sudden I'm quiet because it sparked something in my head, and it's like, ooh, 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 let's talk about this. You made me think of this, and we just don't have that type of interaction going on. So that puts us to virtual and remote teams. How's that working for you?
It's working well enough. We are. I mean, we're still growing. It's but it's a different, again, it's a different dynamic. So even the interactions on the team, and it depends on what part of the organization, right? Like the dev team, they can have individual Zoom calls or individual meetings, and they also have group team meetings, right? So
Right.
you can get a lot of that interaction going, and try to recreate that creativity as much as possible. I think there's something, it's a bit harder to get that creativity going, to bring it back up, is because when you're on a Zoom call or you're on the phone and someone starts talking, someone else starts talking, you feel like interrupting, then you stop and is that person talking? No, is that person gonna, it's kind of broken up. When you're in person, you can kind of sort of talk over each other. It's not rude, to a certain extent, as long as you get your ideas out. It's much different, virtually, but it still gets done. There's still ways to work around it. Still ways to get meetings put together, people to talk together. We're actually starting. I think we're Tackle AI. We're at the point where we can start having what I'm calling town hall meetings,
Mm-hmm.
where we literally just kind of bring the entire organization together and let them know what each aspect of the organization is doing. It's kind of that, going back to the good old days of sort of full transparency, if you will.
Yep.
Like, hey,
Yep.
why don't we just share it with the team? We're still small enough. We're a tight group, but we're kind of big where not everyone knows everything's going on. And not saying that everyone needs to know what's going on, but it's still good to give folks just at least a high level view of, hey, here's what everyone's kind of working on. Here's what the entire team, the entire organization is building towards and has built, and where we're kind of going to next. So you kind of create that vision,
Mm-hmm.
for folks to be like, wow, yes, I'm super excited to be part of this team. I want to take that rocket ship to the moon, right? I'm happy to be on this team and doing everything I can to kind of keep them motivated, inspired to keep working from home and doing Zoom calls.
I 100% agree with you. Now, I've been in software development all my career, different aspects of it, and of course, this offshoring for many, many years now has come in, and the idea of remote teams in different countries and around the world was always a challenge because of all the things that we're talking about. But it takes understanding your people, understanding their needs, not only as an individual, but as you were saying, as a group. Because as a group, it has a whole other dynamic and culture that comes with it. So, how are you going
Agreed.
to handle that differently? They're saying inoculations are coming and we're going to go quote unquote go back to normal soon. I don't know.
Whatever
I'm
that
not
is.
sure what normal was or what the new normal will be, but what would normal be back for you?
Um, well, as I mentioned, for Tackle AI, we got in office during the pandemic. When we had this other spike, we shut it down.
Mhm.
But going back to the office, I know the guys and some of the folks are really itching to go back. I know, like I said, the studies show that people are more productive. I think ultimately it's going to end up being a hybrid, right? We're
Mhm.
going to do definitely some work in the office stuff, because again, that collaboration, that instantaneous results there's something to be said about it, and that's something that I don't think has really been studied well yet. But my perspective, what I've seen and talking to our folks, yeah, it's taking a hit. So
Mhm.
we don't want to ever. It's hard to like force folks to do things, but
Yep.
because that I think does can be a negative. It might be a positive to the company because someone's always there, but they may not be as productive, right? But I think it'll end up being for us like a hybrid. Folks will work from home part of the time. They'll also work from the office part of the time. Different aspects of which team. The dev team may work from the office more often than maybe the business side, or the the marketing side would probably go in the office more often, because again, that creativity kind of stems from
Right.
being together in the same room. So versus like accounting, I don't know how collaborative you really need about numbers.
Right.
Numbers are important, but usually accountants, no offense to accountants, but they want to be in the room, churning the numbers, right, and making sure they're right. And distractions usually do not help that process. So it really depends on what the team member needs. But yeah, I see it kind of being in the future a more of a hybrid between in person in the office and working from home.
Right. It's interesting as humans how resilient and adaptable we are. When this whole thing started about a year ago, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're shutting things down for 3 weeks," it was like, "Oh my God, we're going to be
Yeah.
down for 3 weeks," right? And then it turned to months. And a number of articles I remember came out saying um, this work at home is working because everyone's working from home. And we know when we're all in the office, that works. And they were saying how the hybrid models, no matter what we do, are going to be very problematic. Now, all of a sudden, a year later, all we're doing is talking about different hybrid models, right?
Agreed. It's amazing how technology, the data, right? Just getting the data, you never know. You develop hypotheses, right? And then you go out and do experiments or whatever to kind of test your hypotheses, and you find out what the data says. Ultimately, it's the data that tells you what you need to do.
Right.
You can think that round tires or excuse me, square tires are the best thing in the world. Like that's a brilliant idea. Look, I'm going to make square tires. And then you start doing your testing, you find out that is a terrible idea. And you know what? It is a terrible idea. But until you start fully testing it out, you don't know. So it's not shocking that the data is changing.
Right.
And ultimately we'll find out what works best. But again, it's really, to me, it's more about personality. It's more about the team. What do they need? What works for one company doesn't work for the next company. So you just need to find out what your company needs.
Yep. And how do you do that? As a
Talking.
leader, Mr. CEO.
Yeah. Talking. Honestly, not everybody is built to work from home. They just don't thrive in it. They need that structure, right? I need to go to the office. I need to be at my desk. I need to do my work. When I'm done with my work, I need to check out, close my laptop, go home, and have my home life. And that's tough with the era of COVID-19. So I think a lot of it for me, it starts even before leadership. It actually starts with recruiting and interviewing. You need to hire the right folks for your team. You need to hire the right folks for what you're doing. You need to hire the right folks with the right personality and the skill set to go ahead and be part of the culture. And that's another important thing is how do you, and it's probably a whole nother topic we talked about, like what is culture like in the era of COVID-19? It's definitely different. You try to recreate it best you can, but that even those interactions of team building, how do you build a team building exercises? You can't go out for a beer. You can't go and do like escape rooms, and build team camaraderie there. It doesn't exist. So you can play little games on Zoom, but that's, I don't know, it's tough. But yeah, I think it really starts with interviewing. Bring on the right folks for the right position that is a good fit for your culture.
Yep. I talk to people when they're going to go do interviews all the time, and I say, well, the hiring manager only wants to know 3 things, and that's it. Can you do the job? Right?
Yep.
Will you love the job? Because I don't want to put a lot of energy in you and see you leave in 6 months to a year. And can I stand working with you? Right? Which is all about culture. Do you mix in? Are you going to play well with my team? Are you going to elevate them? Are you going to drag them down? Right? All that. So culture is, I think, one of the most important things as a leader in a COVID-19 world or outside of a COVID-19 world to be very aware of and help build.
Oh yeah, we've had plenty of folks that we've interviewed, here at Tackle AI and my prior startups. My prior startups, we dealt with hundreds of consultants that helped us train and develop software specifically for the healthcare industry. So I've interviewed a lot of folks that are super qualified. On paper, they are phenomenal, and we would be super lucky to have them be part of our team.
Right.
And then you talk to them, and you're like, holy cramoli, this is not a good fit for the team. This is, even though I'd love to have them, they'd be super smart. They'd probably, bring us to the next level, but man, they would destroy the culture in the process. And, I'm here to build a business, it's not about hiring the best people, kind of like going back to the 1980s US, hockey team. He wasn't taking the best players. He was building the best team.
Yes.
And that's not always about taking the best players. And it's the same for your business.
Yep. That's one of my favorite movies, as a matter of fact. Well, we're down to our last 4 or 5 minutes. So I'd like to wind us down a little bit. Joe, what are some of the takeaways or final thoughts you would like to give our audience?
Sure. COVID-19 is era is weird. It's real. Definitely don't lose sight of spending time with your folks, right? And actually that personal time. It is. I feel it's truly important to have that personal time still with your folks. You may not realize that how much had happened when we're in the office back in the day, but it's needed. I get it all the time from our folks where they're just happy to have a little social interaction, even through Zoom. So don't think that is underrated. It's important, and it will help you guys continue to grow and develop your team, both professionally and personally as well, which is going to be ultimately benefit your company or benefit whatever you are trying to lead and do in your world.
That's great. If I add my final thoughts on, although a huge crisis, companies manage crises all the time, right? Things happen. It just so happens that this one we were all in it together and we can share. But in any crisis, understanding your people and culture and how to keep that creativity going, I think is one of the biggest things a leader needs to do to keep that motion going.
Absolutely. I fully concur with you. Be flexible.
Right.
We have no choice but to be flexible, in this era right now, but continue to do so in it. Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Right. Many articles out there about how to turn a crisis into an opportunity. Yeah, all those things are good, but it's still about the people.
Yep. And what your team needs the best. So do your research and then come to your own conclusions about what you and your team need to do to succeed.
That is great. So I'll end it here for us today. Joe, thank you very much for coming on and spending some time with us.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Welcome any other time. Please join us. Love to have you on again. Thank you.
Love it. Thanks. Sweet.